Welcome to the interview portion of today's episode. We'd like to welcome a 15-year college baseball head coach, most notably leading Washington State to more than 300 wins, third most in school history, producing 23 Major League draft picks, and bringing WSU to the postseason for the first time since Buck Bailey and Bobo Braden. You may know him from his time at the Pac-12 Network as a baseball analyst, and he currently is a scout for the St. Louis Cardinals. Welcome to the show, Donnie Marbut.
Woo. Donnie, welcome to the show, Don. How we doing?
I'm great, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
How correct was I there?
It sounded all good to me.
Yes, let's go. I was worried about that. I was hoping I was right.
I'm trying to listen, but the two things I'm not really like too much is listening about myself or looking at my picture. So once you're past that, we're good.
I was gonna say you were looking youthful on the Washington State website when I was looking at it. So
yeah, I guess they haven't updated those pictures. So
maybe in a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Interesting way you guys met. I think that's the best way to start it off here. How you guys met?
Yeah. So Donnie, you want to tell the story, or you want me to, as to how we met and why you're here today?
Well, go ahead. Like I said, your story's probably better than mine anyway.
Love it. So, had some friends in town in the great state of Arizona. Donnie, you were in town doing some Pac-12 coverage for the Pac-12 tournament, and you were here celebrating one of your best friend's birthdays. We met just out at a fun day pool with friends and family, and I got introduced to Donnie by a longtime family friend of his, and just as it all works and connects, and here we are today. So we appreciate you coming on and joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Small world. I think I might have been the oldest in that pool, Mark, where you guys were hanging out. I might have been one of the older guys in the pool, but, my 21-year-old daughter was with me, so I had to make sure I stayed there a little bit longer so I could make sure she was defended or protected wisely.
That's the way to do it.
Absolutely. So, you got to put on your dad hat.
How we're going to kind of knock this out. I have some questions about your coaching career. We're going to get into what you're doing now. But I was just kind of interested in the beginning of how, it seems like you've been working in baseball your whole life. What kind of got you in the game in the first place? Was it just like childhood boom and it never ended?
Yeah. I mean, as a kid growing up, I didn't do anything other than sports, right? There's nothing I didn't have any interest. I didn't collect. Well, I did collect everything on Michael Jordan, the Chicago Bulls. The only thing I ever collected because, the 5'11" white kid from Aberdeen, Washington was going to be the next Michael Jordan. It's kind of was the plan.
Yeah.
Didn't really work out as well. But no, I just was always into sports and, played high school football, basketball, and baseball, and was probably recruited a little bit more to play the other sports. But I just always had an extreme passion for baseball. So on the college route, I went the baseball route, and then I didn't, when I got done playing, I didn't want to walk away from it, and I just was really fortunate to stay involved. And I guess 28 years later after college, still get to be involved in it. So I'm really lucky.
That's awesome.
That's great. And so Donnie, could you kind of take us, when was your first coaching gig? What age were you, and where did you start doing that? It seems like you've been coaching now, or your time coaching was almost 30 years or so, 25 years.
Yeah, so I got done playing. I graduated from Portland State in 1997.
Okay.
I'm really dating myself now. And Buddy and I were gonna, that wasn't too far after Cocktail came out. You guys were a little bit younger, but we both thought we were gonna be Tom Cruise and move to Mexico, and we were gonna serve drinks and have a great time. But that summer, a buddy of mine, I had no money, so a buddy of mine asked if I wanted to help him coach a college team. So I coached in the Portland Collegiate Wood Bat League, and basically I was just coaching guys that I played with or just played against, and I really liked it. It was the first year I really enjoyed it. So then a guy that I played for in high school in the summer, his name was Steve Avila. He was a scout for the Indians, and he had a program called Olympia Pepsi, and he was also a high school coach as well. So asked me if I was interested in coming back and coaching. So I took a job at Capitol High School coaching the baseball team. I was going to coach football and basketball while I went to graduate school and became a teacher. So coached baseball at Capitol High School in 1998 and started my grad degree to student teach. I student taught second and third grade, if you guys can believe that.
Wow.
And So 1998, I coached at Capitol High School. And the team was absolutely loaded. It's funny. I spent 1 year at the high school level. We won a state championship, and my buddies or other people, God, you must have been a really good coach, and I really wasn't. I couldn't screw it up. We figured out our third baseman ended up when he was, going to college. He was a junior. He went to UNLV, and our shortstop went to San Diego State. Our second baseman went to BYU.
Wow.
Our number one pitcher signed with the Blue Jays. Our number two signed with Hawaii Hilo. I think our first baseman walked on Gonzaga. A catcher went to New Mexico. So as you guys can count, there's about 7-8 Division I type guys on that team. And that was the reason why we won a state championship. It sure wasn't because of the coach. So I just got the bug. And then I got, a guy that I played against. His name is Mark Yoshino. He became the head coach at Bellevue Community College. And Bellevue was always the rival of Edmonds Community College where I played.
Right.
Okay.
So he was first year coach, tremendous guy, was a pitching guy, fundraising, and a field guy. The guy's one of the best pitching coaches and field guys ever. And at that point in my life, working with pitchers and working on the field were the two things I didn't want to do. So the opportunity to go coach a team, recruit the team, run the offense, and not have to do the pitching or the field work, man, oh man, that was right up my alley. So went there for a year, and we won a division championship, and went to a junior college championship and came up a little bit short. But then Edmonds, where I played, had an opening. So I became the head coach there. And then, I just stayed at the college level for a long time, and I really, really enjoyed it. I was at Edmonds for 4 years. I was the athletic director there for 2 of the years and the coach for 4 of the years. And then obviously I went to Washington State for 1 year as an assistant, 11 years as a head coach. So that was my college background. And I had an extreme passion for it. Got lucky to really work with really good people, and I got to coach some awesome guys. And I'll probably tell you a really quick story of when I was at Capitol. We were in the semis. It was the Final Four. We were down 10-1 in the bottom of the sixth with 2 outs, and our team scored 9 to tie it with 2 outs.
God.
And they scored 1. And the only reason I tell you that is we didn't do anything. There was no signs. There's no bunt. There's no hit and run. The players just completely found a way to come back and win, and that game never left me. I just thought to myself, that was like one of the best experiences I've ever been a part of on a baseball field. We won the state championship the next day, and it was so anticlimactic. But just the thought of never giving up, never giving in, and it was just a feeling that I wanted to be around forever. So I just went down the coaching route.
Did you say that was a 2-out rally?
2-out rally, yeah. We were down 10-1 in the bottom of the sixth. And then we scored 9 to tie it. Yeah, they scored 9 to tie it. And then we scored 1 in the seventh to win it. And then that was against a school named Sela out of Yakima. And then we ended up playing Kennedy Catholic for the state championship the following day. We won a state championship, and I don't even know the score. I know we kind of blew them out. It was anticlimactic, but that just I really give that credit to that team and that game. It just gave me the coaching bug. It probably screwed it up for every other coach, every other team I ever coached, because from that point on, the game was never over, right?
Yeah.
I just would never let our guys quit, which you should never quit. But
Never.
I really go back to that game of just really giving me the coaching bug.
So you said, like, obviously you did coach at community college and junior colleges. I'm interested about this because we don't hear a lot about the junior college circuit much. Was there maybe something that you realized when you were there that you probably didn't know beforehand? I know you played in it, or maybe like surprising talent level or higher competitiveness than expected. Do you know?
No, what happened for me when I started coaching, right when I got done playing, everything was clear.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was a player that I really, I always knew the game, whether it was football, basketball, baseball, I always knew the game. I wasn't probably as good as I thought I was, and I probably couldn't do some things on the field that I wanted to do, but I always knew the game. But the game became even clearer when I started coaching. And then I just love the strategy. I just love the thought of just outworking people too, right? The junior college thing was great because junior college players, they've got something to prove, and they're lacking something usually. Usually it's either academics or it's opportunity or it's finances or just playing ability. Guys go to junior college to prove something, to get better. With that said, my first junior college team probably had, 17, 16 Division I type players on the team.
Wow.
Right. So it wasn't like they were a super, super talented team. And then back then it was called draft and follow. Major league teams could draft guys and they could send them to junior college. And they would be, those guys would be under control by that team for X amount, tell them that next year's draft. So, yeah, nobody should get it twisted. Like, we were loaded. My first year at Edmonds, our number one pitcher went to Oregon State. Our number two went to Washington State. Our number three went to UNLV. Our number four went to Oregon State. Our number five signed with the Astros. Our setup guy went to Clemson. Our closer went to UNLV. So it wasn't like there wasn't talent. There was a
Right.
ridiculous amount of talent. But you had to learn. I was 24, 25 years old. You had to learn how to manage people. I had to learn how to coach. You had to learn how to do lots of things. And I was so young that I probably made lots of mistakes, but you just kind of learn on the fly, right? And I had great assistant coaches. I had an assistant coach there that ended up being a Division I and a pro coach himself. Lots of those players that I've coached are littered in baseball still to this day. So junior college, it was a great experience. It didn't pay great. I did tell my wife at the time they were paying me $8,500 or $85,000. She thought $85,000. It was just $8,500, but I wasn't very clear on that. So, but no, it was an unbelievable experience coaching junior college baseball.
That's awesome. So, moving ahead. So, and again, if I'm wrong, please correct me. But 2004, you become the assistant coach and recruiting coordinator at Washington State. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely.
So, and I'd like to know, Sue, what was it like? What was the jump like between those two things? Like, you have to imagine it's a little crazier with the D1 aspect to it.
Yeah. I mean, I knew a lot about the Division I game because I played at that level, had friends at that level. For me, it was just a new challenge. We kind of accomplished everything we could at the junior college level. We just won championships and won so many games, and guys were getting to that next level. I do wish, if I had to do it over again, that I would have even done a better job when I was there, because, especially at a young person, I knew I was always trying to get to that next step. So I'm a firm believer that you need to be where your feet are now in my life. But at 24, I sure wasn't, right? I was just trying to be a climber and trying to win games. And, but I think I was, pretty much prepared for that. And at that time, Washington State hadn't had success in a long time. So it was just a good challenge. And the year I was an assistant there was the first winning season they had in years and years. So that was exciting to be a part of. So yeah, I felt like I was ready for that opportunity. It was a new challenge that I was excited about. It was the state that I grew up in. So it was definitely something I was looking for.
Awesome.
That's great. So at that time, you become the youngest head coach in the Pac-10. So I'm always interested when you are one of the youngest coaches doing what you're doing, and you have kids who are 12, 10 years younger than you. I mean, is it harder to get that team behind you, or would you say it's easier to get that team behind you, being the young, cool guy that might be a little bit closer to them in age, or is it more of a challenge to be the younger guy and trying to get that attention?
I think it probably depends on the player that you're talking about, right? Because sure, when you're a little bit younger, maybe you can relate to them a little bit better than maybe an older coach at the time. I probably went to the extreme of being really hard on a Mark, to be honest with you. I was really hard on players because it was way more important for me to be respected than liked. Mm-hmm. So I was really hard on guys, and I didn't want it to blur those lines because we weren't friends. I loved them. Like if you played for my teams that I coached, I had to love you for you to be on the team, and I loved every one of them. And that's just a fact of life. And some you love more than others, but you just didn't want them to be your buddy. You wanted to have them respect you, and you wanted to have your respect earned. You definitely didn't want to be the coach that's liked, because then they walk all over you. So that was never really a problem. I think the problem was, especially when I was younger, I was really hard on them, and I just thought, and I wanted better for them than myself. Like I would always think about who I played for and what opportunities I had. I was like, I want to make it better for them. How many games we won when I was playing. I wanted to be better. I wanted everything to be better for the players that I played for. So that was not a problem. Sometimes when you'd go on the road and you'd go to the field, they'd ask me where the coach was. So that maybe that was the problem.
Sure.
Maybe I was the manager from time to time. So, but no. And like I said, one of the biggest reasons we turned that program around in Pullman was the assistant coaches that I hired. Right, I hired really, really good coaches that had a bunch of Division I experiences, coaches that had went on and, I've got one friend that was on that staff, Travis Hewitt. He's the assistant coach, recruiting coordinator at USC right now, and he was been at Gonzaga in Washington before he coached. I hate to say for me because he coached with me. We turned that program around with himself, and the first staff was Travis Jewett and Greg Swinson, and Greg did a fantastic job for me. Our volunteer was a guy named Matt Dory. Matt was at one time was the scouting director for the Cubs. Now he's more of the head of player personnel. So we hired some really, really great people that were great baseball guys that helped us turn that around.
I might have to walk a couple blocks and go say hi to him because I live about 4 blocks from Wrigley Field. So
yeah, Matt's. I don't know his exact title. He was an area guy, then he was a West Coast guy, and then he became the scouting director for a long time. And like I said, now he's the VP, and I think he's head of player personnel. So fantastic baseball guy, really knew baseball. So when we really started rolling, Greg and Travis and Matt, those guys had every bit as much of the responsibility for us turning that program for a loser to a winner as much as I did.
That's awesome. So after you aren't coaching at Washington State anymore, you joined the Pac-12 network as an analyst. Did you like being, or do you like being in front of the camera? Or are you more of a, X's and O's, not in front of the camera as much?
It wasn't something I ever thought about. I guess they called me because I thought, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. Guys used to tell me, hey, you're the best in-game interview we've ever had. I don't know how to take that. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
You're giving too much info, or you're just exciting.
I'm not the guy I don't like my picture. I don't like, looking at myself by any means. So being on the camera is not something that I like. I'm not scared of it though. I think the play-by, or being the color, the thing I think I've enjoyed so much also is a little bit like coaching. The guys I worked with, man, I worked with some awesome guys, and I've had a lot of praise for, hey, you do a great job, and you do a good job, I think, because the layups that the play-by-play guy gives you. I can go down the list of Rich Burke and Darren Sutton, Ted Robinson, Roxy Bernstein, wow. JB Long. I mean, I've worked with those guys are good. I always call myself the JV. Those guys are the varsity. So, and I'm not going to lie to you. When you look at football and basketball, a lot of guys get fired and they go to TV to get a better job. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to tell you when I went to TV, I wasn't maybe looking for maybe a better scenario on the field. But I went the scouting route the first year. I went with Houston, and then with life situations and where I was at, I definitely didn't want to relocate with my kids. I wanted to make sure that I was with my children. I wasn't going to be leaving my children. So then I went with the Cardinals. So didn't know exactly where it was going to take me. I knew I would be in baseball some way. Didn't know where it would be, but it's been fun. I really enjoy doing the Pac-12 tournament, but I can't tell you that it's been a huge passion of mine, because I would be lying to you. But it's because the one thing I learned too, probably with Jimmy Watson. Jimmy Watson's a good friend of mine that helped me. You're not there. I never wanted, especially in the network, I was a little bit apprehensive because I didn't want those guys that I was, following or covering. I didn't want them to feel like I was questioning them, right? Because some of them were most of them were friends, right?
Sure.
So you're kind of talking about scenarios that showed up, but I didn't want to come across as, like a know-it-all type of guy, because you don't know exactly what's going on with their team and who should be playing where. So I just always wanted to be really cognitive of who was coaching. And then also I'll give you a quick one where I think it was the first year I was doing it. I basically called the shortstop out. It was like a routine play. He should have made it. And I kind of was negative about him. And Jimmy's like off the record, say, Donnie, don't say that. Don't, that's not how you do it. And then I never did again. It was a good learning moment. And sure. I was thinking of saying, this shortstop, he was such a good player. There's no way he should make a mistake on that ball, because that's how good this player is. Mm-hmm. But it probably came across as just not saying he's a very good player. So I definitely learned a lot of it, but I just don't know if that's my calling.
I think, and I can connect it to what we're doing. It's obviously on a different level, but in the same vein, it's like you see something happen on the court, like plenty of times that happens, especially when we're covering football or any of the basketball stuff. It's like, why did that happen? And it's very easy to get reactionary right off the bat, but then it's like, how do I word this best? Because you don't ever know down the line if you're going to meet that person or start a relationship with them at some point,
Yeah, exactly. And I remember at the Pac-12 tournament this year, I just talking about a base open and what I would do in the scenario, and what I would have done in the scenario worked out. But I guarantee there's other times I would have done things in the scenario that doesn't work out, right? Yeah. So, I just, like I said, and I know how difficult especially a college coach job is right now. Holy smokes. I mean, college baseball now, it's really important. You got to win, right? Or they're going to, for one, they're going to fire you, or two, like it's big money now and transfer portal, all these crazy stuff that's going on. And as you watch, super regionals are coming up, and then Omaha, college baseball is a big deal now. So it's, when money gets involved, it's more pressure. So yeah, I definitely, like I said, I cover some really good guys and really fantastic coaches, and I don't want to come across as me questioning them. And sometimes I was just a rookie. The Pac-12, the first time I ever did a game, they said show up at Oregon at this time. I showed up at the third base line 3 hours before the game. They gave me a headset and said, look at that camera. So there's been no training.
Damn, they're just like, go for it. That's crazy.
Yeah. I guess you're supposed to have an earpiece. I never had one, so I just showed up there. So
just do it off the fly. You said that you also started with the Astros, right, for scouting?
Yep.
At the same time?
Yep.
How did you get into that? Is that an easy transition from coaching college?
Well, on the scouting, it's become more of an easy. A lot of college coaches are going to the professional side and coaching. I had a lot of those opportunities, but when I got let go by Washington State on the east, that's in Eastern Washington, we moved back to the west side, and my girls were basically in middle school and high school, and I wasn't going to. I got a lot of opportunities to go coach, but when you're coaching, you go to spring training and then you're gone for 6 months. There's no way I was going to wait for kids for 7 months. When you're an amateur scout covering an area, it's a lot. You're covering the area just like you covered as a Division I coach, looking at the same players, right? Though there's going to be more players that were more interesting for Washington State than, let's say, the Houston Astros or the St. Louis Cardinals, because there's difference between college players and professional players. There's very few high school players that are ready to sign contracts, right now. So just an easy transition. A lot of coaches have done both of it, so it just was kind of an easy fit for me, honestly.
Awesome.
So you brought up an interesting point about the state of college baseball and where it's headed and where it's going, and the NIL money and the infusion of kind of, I guess you could call it, corporate money coming into college athletics. Do you think you would have handled that well when you were coaching, or in the recruiting trail? How does that look? And, looking back on that, do you think that would have been an advantage for you or a disadvantage?
That's a fair question, Mark. Probably good and bad. I think. No offense to Washington State, I loved it there. Like getting let go at Washington State was one of the hardest things I've ever dealt with in my life. But Washington State, as you can see now, they're not even part of a conference, right?
Yeah.
So Washington State and Oregon State, unfortunately, on the out. So there is a pecking order, and we used to recruit players and we made them better. We projected, we developed them and made them better. What's happening nowadays, even though Washington State's not a mid-major, schools like that are being considered mid-majors. It's almost like the major schools that aren't part of the NIL with money, they're considered mid-majors, and players are leaving those schools to go to other schools for money and for bigger opportunities. I would have struggled with that, because I love my guys and I spent a lot of time with them. I don't know what every coach did, but I have a hard time thinking that college coaches recruited and worked and tried to develop more than we did. That was our life, and you had to at Washington State. So that would have been hard. Washington State's not really flush with a lot of money right now. I know I would have tried to jump in with the NIL game as much as I could have. I would have tried to round people up, because it's no offense, and this is, it's the new rules, right? But right now in college sports, you don't know who the best coach is. As a coach, you get at that level trying to win championships, and your own ego wants to get stroked too. Like, I want to coach against the best. I want to be the best coach in the country.
Hell yeah!
I don't know if you're going to know who that is now, because let's make no mistake about it. The team that's winning, that team's also going to have the best players too. So some teams are buying players, right?
Right.
So and it's showing up. So I like to say I would have adapted, and if that ever happens for me again, I will adapt. But I know that it would have been hard when players go in the portal. Like, I work for the Cardinals now, and we have great. Our front office, Mo and Gersh, the people that run our program, run our team. I can't imagine if any major league team every year had to recruit 27 new players. If you're a Cubs fan, like you said, can you imagine the Cubs having 27 free agents every year? That's what college sports are. They're all free agents all the time, man.
Yeah.
And that's hard. It's really, really hard. And as you can see, there's some coaches getting out of it at all levels, right? I don't know
Yeah.
if you watched the interview with Nick Saban, and it's hard to think that there's a better college coach in all sports than Nick Saban.
Can't
I wonder
argue
if there
against
was
it.
no transfer portal. Yeah, if there was no transfer portal and no NIL, would Nick Saban still be the head coach at Alabama?
You got to think,
My
yeah.
guess is I would say yes. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, maybe he was going to retire no matter what, but it's sure those interviews sure make it feel like he was the guy that would still be coaching. So, yeah, to answer your question on the market, I think yes and no. I think there's parts of it I would have struggled a little bit, but I think I would have figured out a way how to adapt and deal with it.
Yeah, no, and for the record, Vince and I are White Sox fans,
Yeah.
Donnie. So we
Okay.
might as well have 27 free agents brand new every year.
Yeah. Well, you know
so-
what? You're just a draft away, man. You're just a couple free agents away, and you never know.
So we've been told. So no, I think that's a wonderful answer. And to your point, like those coaches that are ultimately, to your point, kind of buying that talent. Who's to say they are the best coach in the game right now? So, kind of leading into that, these days it seems like far less of a crapshoot of drafting MLB talent just due to base off of how much analytics are in the game. And, you look at guys proving themselves in college, like a Paul Skeens, like an Adley Rushman, like these guys that you're seeing come out who are just true animals at the next level, and their grace period from double A to the big leagues is a matter of 90 days. In your eyes, what is something that you say you look for in today's talent pool? Is that eye test theory there when you just look at a guy and say, yep, that's it? Or is the analytics side also a factor in all of that?
Well, it all wraps in one, right? They're all of them. You're going to look at players and you're going to evaluate the tools. Everybody knows about the 5 tools.
Oh yeah.
Can the guy hit? Can he hit for power? Can he run? Can he defend? Can he throw? You can't just take a guy that's that doesn't have any tools, right? They can't do that. The good clubs, the teams that have had a lot of success, they've got models, right? The analytics is part of it. The scouting is part of it. The player development is part of it. So it all wraps in together to figure out who you're going to when it comes to the draft, right? Me personally, the first thing when you're looking at players that you're evaluating, you want guys that want to go out, right? If you look at the draft in general, it's probably 75% of the draft is made up of college players, right?
Yep.
But if you look at also, if you look in the big leagues right now, 60% of the big leaguers come from high school, about 20%, or excuse me, 60% come from college, 20% are high school, and then 20% are international players. And it's not exact, but around about those numbers, right? So if 60% of the college players consist of the big league rosters, then that's where you're probably going to draft players from, right? So, and you're going to draft players from the major conferences because that's where the better players usually are. So there's a wide range of what you're looking for, and each organization has some things that they're looking for. This is year 3 for me with the Cardinals, and I'm having a good idea of what our team looks like. Our team is head up by Randy Flores. Randy Flores is our scouting director, and he has a group that he works with on the scouting side as well as the analytics side. And then that group is drafting players to send to our player development. So, sometimes, like you guys are White Sox fans, right? Everybody has their team, right? Someone will blame it on, hey, we have poor scouting. And then sometimes they'll say we have poor player development or whatever it is. But I think the good clubs, especially the teams that can't just buy anything. There are some teams that honestly don't have to develop as much, right? Because they can go to free agency and they can sign whoever they want. Not every team can do that. So I think there are
Dodgers,
certain
looking at
teams,
you, Dodgers.
yeah, and I don't know anything about like
Sure,
their
yeah.
their player development or their scouting, but they're not teams that are not going to give, whether it's Shohei or any of those guys.
Mhm.
There are certain teams that are never going to sign those free agent type guys. So each team has a formula how they do it. And I try not to judge other people's because I don't know theirs, right? I don't know what
Absolutely.
their formula is.
Sure.
I don't know what St. Louis wants and what my boss wants and the people that I work, I know what they're looking for. So that does shape you kind of how, that you're looking. Even though you're shaped like baseball's hard, man. And I will tell you a couple things. First off, if you don't love this game, I've got no interest in even wanting to draft you. Because if you don't love the game of baseball, man, it's not a sport you should be a part of. And second part is, this would be maybe surprising to you and others, like, got to have a guy that knows how to fail.
Yeah,
Got to
true,
fail in
sure.
baseball. Got to know how to do it. You got to know how to deal with it. I've coached a lot of players that I thought might make it, and usually it came down to just the mental grind of not being able to accept the failure part of it. So those are two things that really stick out to me, is like, got to love this game, and you got to know how to deal with the failure.
Speaking of formula, because we were just talking about this, exit velo and launch angles seem to be like the key words that everybody's saying. Anytime you talk about scouting or people coming up, can you hit the ball in the air and how fast is it going? Do you feel like this is kind of like the death of small ball per se, like people have been saying? Or is it just kind of like a change? Like, do you focus on that a lot, or is it just another piece of the puzzle?
I mean, it's part of the piece for sure. No
Yeah.
question, right? But people want the game to be exciting, right? And, people talk about launch angle a lot. What they should be talking about is what's my angle to hit the ball in the park? Because that's what people want to do if you think about it. The strikeouts have went way up and the home runs have went up, right? And some people are okay with that type of game. Exit velocity, that doesn't mean everything, right? But there's a good determining factor, right? When the ball does come off hot, hard contact creates more hits, right? So you're looking at that, so it's just, like I said, it's just, for me, and it's not the only thing, but it is the positive. I mean, it's part of that formula: exit velocity and launch angle, and there's the angle of their swing. It definitely is a factor in what you're looking for sure.
Awesome.
Love
that. Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, okay. No. So to kind of lead into that, okay, to your point, it's a part of the game now. Now we start to see the pitch clock become more of something. Now, we have seen a direct correlation, at least over the past 3 to 5, a lot of UC we've seen, a lot of Tommy John surgery coming into the game. Do we feel like the stress to have that great breaking pitch or the pitch clock, there's been correlations of both? Do you believe that's leading into more of these injuries that you're seeing now bring guys to the point where they're not even 17 years old and they're having Tommy John? Do we think this is something that's becoming more relevant and a part of the game, and something as a scout that you pay attention to moving forward into the future?
I don't think the pitch clock has anything to do with the Tommy John, the injury, right? That doesn't have anything to do with it. And it's a great question, but it's also, I don't have a lot of hobbies, right? So I read when it comes to baseball a lot, right? If you look at the Japanese pitchers, they have way less injuries than we have, but they throw way more, right? So it's like, and then there's also the new theories of guys are just so much bigger and stronger, and they're making their arms work faster than they've ever worked, right? Also, kids are throwing so many more pitches at a younger age, right? Yeah. Also, kids at a younger age, they want Tommy John because they think they're going to throw harder, right? I don't have all the answers. I know that health is obviously important. How a guy throws the baseball dictates. I remember this too when I was a junior college coach, and when I first went to the Pac-12. There was a kid locally named Tim Lincecum. Everybody knows the Freak, right?
I've heard of him.
We've heard of him.
Yeah.
And I used to always listen to, because the scouts at that time, they were scared of him. They didn't draft him out of high school, right? Didn't try to sign him because he's going to get hurt. Well, how do you know? Because he's little. He's the Freak. He was like nobody else, right? Yeah. So he had to prove himself, and he eventually got hurt after like 3 World Series and 2 Cy Youngs.
Yeah,
but he did
trade off.
It's almost like all pitchers are going to get hurt. Very few pitchers have never not been hurt, right? So I think, once again, all those are formulas, right? The St. Louis Cardinals, the Chicago White Sox, they're going to have pitch data of every pitch that anybody that's in your organization, they're going to know how many pitches he's throwing and when he throws it. And, they're just trying to keep, people healthy. And there's just different ways to do it. I don't know. And bodies are different. Body types are different. Guys throw it differently. So I don't think I'm the right guy to have the answer. But, when you're scouting and you're coaching, you're looking at deliveries. And most often, guys that have less effort with cleaner arm actions, those guys tend to get hurt less. But it doesn't guarantee anything. I mean, when I was first starting coach, remember the first pick of the draft there was Mark Capel, right? Mark Capel was going to be the greatest prospect of all time. Big, strong, perfect body, prettiest delivery you'd ever see in your life, but he got hurt, right? So I don't know. I'm no doctor by any means. I just, like I said, I evaluate the tools, look at arm action, look at delivery, those types of things, and you hope, right? You just don't know who's going to get hurt or who's not going to get hurt. I mean, there are some predictors that certain organizations have that they kind of lean on, but I just don't think I'm qualified enough to say who's going to get hurt and who's not.
Yeah, we didn't bring you in to be a doctor anyway.
No,
that's
no.
That's what we do. We're armchair doctors every week.
Oh, good. I've been called a lot of things, and a doctor's not one of them. Trust me.
Same here, man. Absolutely same here.
That's great. So kind of leading into that and how you evaluate talent, and you're primarily West Coast, correct, Donnie?
Yeah, North. I basically West Coast, but more Northwest than anything. I do things on the amateur side and then the minor league side. I'm pretty much predominantly in the Northwest.
Okay. Well, I don't know how much exposure right now. I'm assuming a fair amount to the college game that you may have. I mean, last year, Paul Skeens was the guy. I mean, everybody was going crazy. Years past, it was Adley Rushman, Bobby Witt Jr. Is there someone in your eyes coming out this year that may be some of the best talent in college baseball that you've seen in a while?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about one player in particular, and I only feel comfortable talking about players that I see a lot. I mean, I see a lot of video with a lot of guys, right?
Yeah.
Across the country.
Sure.
And I know
we don't want any trade secrets. No trade secrets.
Yeah, but
No
just
trade
like in
secret.
general, like because I know area scouts, a lot of area scouts, they want to draft guys. They want their guys drafted. But it's a big country, right? There's a lot of players out there. But my area, like, I have a hard time believing that Travis Bazzana, the second baseman from Oregon State, he's as elite college baseball player that you'll ever see. I have no idea what the Cleveland Guardians are doing at 1 or Cincinnati. I think they pick at 2, and I don't know if it's Colorado 3 and then Oakland 4. We don't pick till 7. I don't know what our organization wants to do. I would pound the table at 7 for him. I don't think he's going to get there. I would have a hard time thinking if Travis Bazzana slid down to 7, it must be one of the greatest drafts in the history of the draft because this guy can really do it all with the bat. So he's a guy that, without a doubt, will be in the big leagues very, very soon, in my opinion.
Oregon State's got talent in the middle infield. They're really good at that for some reason or another.
Yeah,
they've just done a great job. They did. They built their program. My first year as a head coach in 2005, that was the first time that Oregon State went to Omaha under Pat Casey. They won it in 2006 and 2007, and they won. They went to Omaha. Well, Jacoby Ellsbury was on that team, but Jacoby wasn't some national recruit. He was a great player, turned into a first rounder, and was fantastic. But Oregon State got to Omaha with a bunch of Northwest tough kids at that time, and they won it back-to-back years with guys that were like 4th and 5th round picks. Kevin Gunderson, Dallas Puck. I could go down the list. Darwin Barney, Mitch Canna. Mitch is their head coach now. But as they've had all that success, they started building the facility. Then it changed a little bit, right? Then they could actually recruit nationally. A former White Sox Cub, Nick Madrigal.
Yep.
Nick was a national recruit that ended up going to Oregon State. If Oregon State hadn't had that success, my guess is, he wouldn't have been one of those guys that went to Oregon State. So it's the old saying, if you build it, they will come. They built it, and then they started coming.
Last couple questions for you, and then we'll let you be on your way today. So, farm systems in the MLB, we look at it all the time, especially as White Sox fans. We're like, okay, who are the next guys that are going to come up that hopefully we can retain on the team? You see rankings every year, and they kind of vary depending on, the new guys that are coming up, maybe guys that are in double AAA looking to go forward. Do you take any credence in how farm systems are rated, or do you kind of think that's a crapshoot depending on the year?
Well, I don't think they're probably 100% accurate, but I think there's some validity to it for sure. I mean, no question. I think it's easier for guys that cover complete organizations like where I'm located, for instance, like the Mariners. I cover the Mariners AAA team and I cover their A team, but I don't cover their AA team, right? Mm-hmm. So the Angels, I cover a couple of their teams, so all kinds of pins. But no, I think there's definitely some validity to it. But I wouldn't say it's 100% accurate by any means. But I definitely think there's some validity. Like I said, I wouldn't call it 100%, but I would agree with some for sure.
Well, that's why I'm always like, you see the Padres making trades, and then you're like, how are they still top 10? I don't know how they keep doing this. They're getting away with murder.
Yeah, well, I think it's like with anything when you have writers on your side. I'm not saying San Diego does, but I think it's like
Sure.
any industry is that you have people that you want to give out a certain narrative, right? You want them to spin a certain narrative. But like for instance, being a Northwest guy, when Mariners in particular, they had some really young prospects, and now they're in the big leagues. Like Julio, a couple years ago, when Mariners had I'm not sure, and I don't know anybody's rankings. I'm a little bit different like that. It's like I don't care about any team but the Cardinals.
Yeah.
To be completely
Sure.
honest with you, when I was coaching, I didn't care about any other team but my team, right? So I only care about the Cardinals. But like I said, covering some of those teams, you knew you had some of those high-profile guys that are now in the big leagues. So, and some teams on the minor league side, you got to look at some teams have a stronger presence in the Dominican, right? So, you're not going to see the international players as much when they're coming up because they start a little bit younger there. So there's different ways to look at it, but I think there is some validity to some of it for sure.
We'll make sure we start a blog and we put the Cardinals at number 1 for our,
Okay,
our rankings.
Yes.
Yeah, get us rolling. We got to start rolling a little bit here. We got some good young players that are up for us now. Some of the younger guys that are playing for up. So I hope some of those prospects really start playing great baseball for the Cardinals.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to kind of riff on that, talking about the Cardinals, so Jordan Walker last year came up, seemingly was doing well, hitting the cover off the ball, and then this year started in AAA, seemingly to kind of work on some things. Mason Wynn, on the other hand, is clearly lighting it up at the next level. Like, in your eyes, is Jordan Walker going to be a guy, after the All-Star break that you could see back in the lineup on an everyday basis?
Yeah, you'd assume a prospect like that would end up being up and being an everyday guy and hitting the middle of the order. Like I said, that's way above my pay grade. I don't have those conversations, but he's super, super talented, and there's a high investment in him. He's already showed that he can do it at the big league level. I think that goes back a little bit to what I talked about before when you're looking at guys. And I don't know if Jordan's having any of this type of issues at all, but I do know, it's hard, man. Baseball it's really, really hard. And especially guys that are high-profile guys. Some guys have never failed in their life, right? Mm-hmm. So when they do fail, it and then all of a sudden, when you're a young player that people have invested millions of dollars in, and you're the future of the program, future of the organization, that's added pressure to guys too, as well. It's hard enough just to get hits and play well when you're not, not the centerpiece of it. So like I said, I've never met Jordan. Obviously, just we're part of the same organization, and I know that we think highly of him, and he's a super, super talented player. And I know they love his makeup and everything about him as a person just as much as a player. So I'm expecting him to be right back in the middle. And you look up in September, there's about 30 home runs and about 90 RBIs.
Love to see it. So, we discussed it a little bit, Donnie, about different positions and things like that and different traits you look for. Is there a specific position where you're scouting that you feel the most comfortable giving the most accurate data on? So are you more of a scout who looks and scouts pitchers better than most? Or would you say you're more of a position type of scout?
I wouldn't say if it would be better. I will tell you, as a college coach, I worked with the hitters, the infielders, and I ran the offense. So I was a position player guy. I love evaluating pitching for whatever reason. I mean, I think I just love watching guys that can really pitch. I'm also one of those guys. I like the 3-2 game. I don't like the 12-8.
Same.
I've just been that guy. I like pitching and defense. So I think I like that as a middle infield guy, former middle infielder, and I love watching middle guys. But I don't have really a preference or anything that I think I'm better at or not better at. I hope I can evaluate them all the same. Some can be a little bit more difficult. I do know that young players, sometimes it's hard to project power, right? I will tell you, it's not the easiest thing to is this guy, when he gets bigger and stronger and he gets wood in his hands, is he going to still have type of power? But that's what, I think it's really important, even as a scout, you just to always sharpen your tools and continue to get better. I always tell other younger, I haven't been scouting that long, but so I still consider myself a young scout, even though I'm not a young guy anymore. You can learn so much at the ballpark, just being at the ballpark, talking to other scouts, listening to other scouts, all the other experience that you have, especially in our organization. I just absolutely love the guys that I work with and all their experience that they bring. St. Louis is a very loyal organization. So if you look at our national scouting advisors and our cross checkers, they've been with the organization a long, long time. So they give you great information. When I was a college coach, it's you weren't necessarily watching players to see what they're going to do in the big leagues. When you're scouting and recruiting college players, you look like, how can that guy help my team win, right?
Yeah.
And a player that can help a college team win is way different than a player that can one day help a big league team win. So it's constant. But for whatever reason, I do love watching. I do love evaluating pitching for whatever reason.
A good pitcher is like, it's poetry in motion. It's honestly the best when you see something like that.
Yeah, and you guys talked a little bit about exit velocity and launch angle. I mean, velocity, that's what they talk about now, but now it's more vertical rise and, your break and those types of things. At the end of the day, when it comes to pitching, it's about, can the guy throw strike one? Can he throw a quality pitch, right? And then on the offensive side, can the guy hit a quality pitch, right? Well, you don't, and it comes, I mean, even though the game is hard, it's really, really simple if you think about, like, who can throw it over the plate and who can hit it when it's on the plate.
Yeah, it's a very much so a primal game. One man throws a stone, the other man has a club. Kind of leading to that, like Vince and I growing up, we had the opportunity to watch some great pitching. What points out in my mind is a guy like Chris Sale. Is there a talent coming up, or in the MLB, guys who are starting like a Paul Skeens? You see, the young Leiter playing for the Cubs right now. Do you see any of this talent and go, wow, that guy's Cy Young material? Or how do you view that? You claim you love, scouting pitching. Are there certain traits you look for other than spin rate, other than, motion, that smoothness of motion you discussed? What are some things that you kind of look for in that?
Well, when you're looking at high school players, you're still looking at, can they develop, right? Because you can really think about future physical projection. You can still do that for college players too, but you can project more on a high school player. He hasn't been in the college weight room. He's 17 years old. He's 18 years old. So there guys are super, super projectable. College guys are less projectable. When it comes to delivery, most often when guys have repeatable deliveries, and they've got to have 3 pitches. You're not going to, very rarely can you get through a big league lineup twice if you don't have 3 pitches, right? So most often guys with higher effort and deliveries that aren't as clean, they're going to be more bullpen type guys that lack a changeup. It's hard for high school kids though, because think about a high school player. When he throw a good high school prospect that's got a chance to be a professional, the only pitch that he's going to get hit in high school is his changeup. Right? Guys are throwing so hard. These high school kids aren't going to be hitting these premier prospects, right? But all of a sudden they throw the changeup and all they're doing is speeding the bat up, right? So they're just giving kids opportunities. So yeah, there's tons of guys out there that have a chance to be. I mean, you brought up Skeens. I mean, they're talking about him being a generational talent like a Strasburg type of guy. But then again, look at it. I mean, look at the top pitchers in baseball. They're not always going to be those first round type guys, right? They're guys that some guys are, especially pitching, they're just always just one pitch or just one start away from getting blown up. The injuries on the pitching side seem to be way more, typical than it is as a position player. So it's really, like I said, it's kind of a crapshoot. But there's guys are throwing really, really hard now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I'll go to a minor league game. I have minor league coverage this week, and you're going to see 7 or 8 guys throwing 95 to 98 out of the bullpen. That's just what they do, right? So, for me, velocity, I'm never enamored by velocity anymore because guys throw so hard. And guys now are throwing their sliders as hard as they were throwing the fastball when I was playing.
Yeah, like
right?
a
So
94, 95 slider. You're like, what are we doing?
Yeah. And the crazy part is, if they throw it in the wrong part of the plate, those big league hitters will still hit it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's just, it's amazing how talented these guys are. So, yeah, there's a lot of great ones out there, and I do think the game's changing just a little bit. I think people are stealing bases a little bit more. There's a little bit more than it used to be, and I think the strikeouts will cut down a little bit. Maybe the home runs will slow down a little bit, and I think you're going to get a little bit better brand of baseball than maybe we've seen in a little bit from time to time.
This is kind of an aside. We're gonna get to the end here in a second, but I didn't really understand it when they made the bases a little bit bigger. Do you think that had like a big change in the game? Like, did steals happen more because the bases are bigger, or is that pitch clock?
Well, if you look at the numbers, the steals are up. I don't know
they are.
because they're up. So I mean, there must be a reason to it. Is it because the bases are bigger? I don't know that. I know that Major League Baseball gets a bad rap because they're making changes, but
It's
but they're
good.
trying to make changes. Yeah, they're making changes for the
Yeah.
fans. They're trying to make it a better, they're trying to make it a better product.
True.
But you can't keep everybody happy, right?
Right.
Like I said,
No.
I don't love a long game. I don't like. I like a quicker game,
Yeah.
but I also don't. I don't love the pitch clock. Well, you can't have it both ways, So I think
Right.
I just think you gotta love the game, right? You just gotta love the game, and as it evolves and changes, sometimes you have to change with it, or you gotta find yourself a new sport. And I'm just not
Right.
doing that. I'm not gonna find myself a
No.
new sport. I love the game of baseball. So
And that goes hand in hand with like the historical relevance, and are the same records, are they going to be broken if it's different? Like, you're either going to progress the game or you're going to keep it the same so it's as accurate as possible, and you're never, like you said,
yeah.
you're never going to appeal to both sides.
Yeah, as the game has changed too, and this is the one thing I tell players and I tell coaches all the time, because you hear it all the time. We all old guys get together. Oh, that guy's not as good. These guys are bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. But I would say I see less instincts and I see less knowing how to play the game, because I watch young players. I've been in those conversations. Hey, coach, how hard was I throwing? Well, hard enough to give up 10. That's how hard you were throwing, right? Or how was my exit velocity? Well, on the one time you made contact, it was pretty good. I didn't gauge it on the other two swings and misses, right? So
Right.
I think sometimes because we have those data points that we can actually look to, we're looking at that when the game needs to be more simple. Like, forget how hard am I throwing it? Did I throw that fastball on the black, right? Did I not swing and miss at the ball in the strike zone, right? We're going to swing and miss when we chase, right? But, we've got to make sure that we're making contact when the ball's in the strike zone. Some of those little things, they don't need to change, even though parts of the games are changing.
Yeah. You'd rather have 95 on the corner than 98 in the middle of the strike zone.
Yeah, I mean, watch a big league game. Those guys got nasty stuff.
Yeah.
And you've watched it. They throw it over the middle of the plate. They turn their head already, like before the ball's even made contact. Like, oh, I'm in trouble. Right? If guys throw it over the middle of the plate on certain guys, they're like, that ball's out of here. Because that's the whole thing, is that even the hitters in the big leagues, the greatest ones, it's not like they don't miss. They just don't miss their pitch, right? The minor league guys, the college guys, they're going to miss their pitch. But, the Mike Trouts of the world, the great players, the Goldschmidts, the guys that we have, Nolan and Goldie, all those guys, man, those guys get their pitch. That's why they're the greatest in the world, man. Those guys, and the pitchers that are the greatest, they're the ones that don't live in the middle of the plate, right? They live on the edges, and they pitch to the black, and they can throw multiple pitches for strikes anytime they want. And they don't always have to be, 100. The problem is when you start getting those guys that also can throw it 100 and they can throw it wherever they want it, that's when you got no chance.
Game over. Yeah.
And to kind of speak of the strike zone, what's your thought process, Donnie, on robot umps, where that's trending? We've seen the horror stories of, the balls that are thrown right down the middle that are called balls. You've been scouting the AA and AAAs of the world over the past year or two now. Have you seen a difference in speed of game, accuracy of game, things of that with those robot umps, or are you a traditionalist as well on that?
But I mean, it slows down. They only have so many challenges, right? But it does slow it down a little bit. I mean, I get that we want to get it right. The problem is that people are human. They're going to make mistakes, but
yeah,
I don't love the robots. I love the umpires.
Me too.
But also we don't treat them well. And trust me, as a coach, I treated them poorly. It wasn't a strength of mine. I had a lot of conversations, and a lot of arguments, and a lot of fights with umpires. And as I look back at my career, I never won one of them. Never won one of those fights. So I probably
Rarely does anybody.
Rarely does anybody win that fight. So, I mean, like I said, once again, they're just trying to make it better. It's big business, and there's big dollars on the line. They want to get it right. But as a traditionalist, I don't love it.
I'm with you. All right, so this is the wrap up. Last question. As your career continues, you're obviously stuck your feet in plenty of different avenues. Is there anything inside, outside of the game that you're looking to get into? Maybe something you want to plug on the show? Anything that you want to share?
No, I just with my job and with the Cardinals, and no matter what I'm doing, I just want to make an impact to any organization that I'm with, right? When I was with the Pac-12, I'm no longer with the Pac-12 because there is no more Pac-12.
Yeah.
I wanted to make an impact there, and I've just committed to myself and to the Cardinals. Like, I just want to. Right now, I have a job with the Cardinals, and that's what I want to do. I want to do the best of my ability, and hopefully I can bring value to the organization. I really enjoy working for the people that I work with. I really enjoy, like I said, doing what I'm doing, and I'm fortunate. I'm really fortunate guy that I get to do what I get to do. So, just going to keep enjoying it and keep getting better. My father-in-law is a longtime football coach, the winningest coach in the state of Washington.
Really?
And
Wow.
he's the winningest coach all time in the state of Washington. And the thing about him, even up until his last coaching day, he was always trying to get better. He was constantly evolving, trying to get better at what he did. And he's the best ever. Like in our state of Washington, Sid Otton's the greatest coach that's ever coached in this area. And if you're the best at what you do and you continue to get better, why shouldn't I be doing that, right? I should continue to be getting better and better. I should be getting better on the analytics side and the evaluation side and the people side. So, yeah, that's just what I'm trying to do in the game. Outside the game, I got kids, man. I got 4 kids. I got 3 daughters and a son, and I just want to be the best dad I can possibly be and force myself in their lives as much as they can. Because when they get older, they just don't want to hang out with you as much anymore. So
It comes back around. I'll tell you that.
I said my 2 daughters are 20. Oh, well, my youngest will be 20 on the 20th, and my oldest is 21, and my stepdaughter's 24. My stepson's 27. So
there you go.
It's getting fun, right? But yeah, I just want to be the best spouse and the best dad I can be, and the work's work. So it's life, and as we know, life is short, man. So it's a gift, and we gotta appreciate every day that we have.
I love it.
Love it.
We want to thank you for coming on. We really do appreciate
My pleasure, guys. Yeah, absolutely.
If there's ever a time you want to
you.
share anything else, feel free to give us a call. We're right here for you. So.
Okay, guys. Anything I can do for you guys, just let me know.
Donnie, thank you so much.
You bet, guys. Have a great one.